A good Voch Rabboisai. Lilu Nishmasi Mimiros Ruspas Mordechai. We saw the Mishnah on Daf Amud Aleph. The Mishnah says that if you put the blood on the wrong part of the Mizbeach, I told him to take the Mizbeach away. Whatever. You guys know what it looks like. There's a red line in the middle of the Mizbeach. The Chatos goes above the red line. All the other animals go below the red line. If you mixed it up, you put the blood on the top instead of the bottom. If you put the blood on the bottom instead of the top, puzzle. So we're going to see we have a machlokes. We started off with Shmuel. Here's Shmuel. Shmuel holds that if you put the blood in the wrong spot on the Mizbeach, it's still good. Loi bim koimai, kim koimai. You put it on top of the red line, it's like as if you put it on the bottom. It's perfect. For what? Yesh l'balam kapara. Only for kapara. For everything else, no good. In other words, the meat is no good. You can't eat it. You can't put it on the mizbeach, etc. And we're going to see Rish Lakish is basically saying the same thing as Shmuel. The one who argues, and it's literally at the end of the sugi, it's literally the same Shmuel and Rish Lakish. The one who argues is Rabbi Yochanan. He says putting it on the bottom instead of the top, no good, and therefore the owner does not have a kapara. Going back to Shmuel, that's where we're at. So I think Mara says at the end that apostle was the one that applied the blood. I think Mara said maybe it should be dachui, and that's where we finished off. There's no dachui. So the Gemara says we're holding by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines from the bottom. Ihachi kabbalah nami. Why is it only by shchita? Kabbalah is also a problem if we're talking about somebody who's apostle. If the guy, let's say, is Yisrael, could a Yisrael actually have the wrong intent? Who could have the wrong intent for pigul and chutz l'makam, chutz l'zman, and all the other things that are machshava? We're going to talk about in a second. There's 3 things that could be a bad machshava. Only somebody that could do the avodah, not a Yisrael, not apostle. It can't be, let's say, a mincha soimer, says Rashi. It has to be on a mizbeach that doesn't have any b'gam. It has all the stones are perfect. So the Gemara says like Tema Zarko. We're not talking about Zrika. Before, when I said in the beginning of the sugya, we're not talking about shchita. We're talking about Zrika versus Kabbalah. So the Gemara says take out the word Zrika. You're right. We're talking about all the way in the beginning, the shchita, and now Yisrael could perform the shchita. Psulim could perform shchita. Therefore, what? What's the theorize? Since they can perform the shchita, therefore they could have a bad intent. They could ruin it with their intent. Other things they can't, because they can't do Kabbalah, they can't do Zrika, so they can't ruin it. You're right. In the other avodas they can't ruin it, but in the shchita they could. My komashmal on the pasal machshava. You telling me that a machshava during shchita could pasal tanina that we learned these guys that are pasal for the avodah during shchita they could have a machshava. My timing to the Rava, as Rava says, that apostle cannot ruin it with his machshava past the shchita. From Kabbalah, Hoylacha, Zrika, a Yisrael cannot have, if the Yisrael decides to walk the blood to the Mizbeach, he can't have a bad machshava. He can't ruin his machshava. Listen to this. Meisvei. Chishev litenes anitonim lemalo lemata. If a person had a thought in his mind, a kohen, as he's performing the avodah, he says to himself, you know what? I want to mess around there a little bit. I want to take this blood, instead of putting it below the red line, I want to put it above the red line. Is that a machshav of pigul? No. Why? Because it's not one of the 3 things we just discussed. Chutz l'zman, he didn't think in his mind that he's going to do this rik in 3 days. He didn't think in his mind he's going to eat it in 3 days. And he also didn't think he's going to eat it outside of Yerushalayim. And he also didn't think it's for another owner. All he thought about is that it's going to be above the red line. That's not a machshava that could passel. And therefore the halacha is la'alter kosher. If you thought about it right away, it's kosher. Rabbi Isai, you all remember when we're learning about pigul today, actually, maybe it's tomorrow, I'm mixing up the bap. Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow, at the end of the second half of the shir, is all about pigul and chutz makam. How do we know it and what the... But one of the halachas that we discussed, and everybody remembers this, is that pigul has to be a pure machshava of pigul. In other words, it's one of these things, the isser is only if you think about it as pigul and you don't think about another something that ruins the carbon. Ememela. We just said if a person had a thought that the blood is going to be given underneath the red line, not above the red line, or vice versa, it doesn't do anything, doesn't ruin it. So now he has another thought. He realizes it doesn't work. He has another thought that he's going to eat this carbon mechutz l'zman, mechutz l'makom. Is it a good pigul or not a good pigul? The answer is it's a very good pigul. Why? Because the first thought that he had is 0. If the first thought would count, then you can't have a machshava of pigul. Pigul has to be pure. It has to be mamish, the purest form of isser, without any disturbances. So this is not considered a disturbance. Nothing. Doesn't do anything. Kosher. So Mela. Chazarah top of Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Chutzim koyim apostle v'mekaris. Chutz l'zmanoi pigul. And if he thinks to himself he's going to eat it outside of the allotted time, or he's going to put it on the mizbeach outside of the allotted time, which is also a type of a form of eating, pigul. It's a perfect pigul because his first machshava of putting it above the line means nothing. V'chayav malav kares, and therefore you get kares for that. L'machar pasol. But now, once you have a machshava that ruins it, so the following day, pasol chazar v'chishiv bein chutz l'zmanoi, bein chutz l'mkoimoi, pasol ve'im bekaris. Now the pigul is no good anymore. Why? Because the original machshava is good. V'shaloi b'mkoimoi kim koimi dami. Now the Gemara asks, well, wait a minute. If you tell me like Shmuel here on the chart, Shmuel holds that putting the blood below the red line instead of above the red line is good in a way. It's partially good. Why is it partially good? It's good for the kapara of the owner. It's not good that you can't eat the meat. So it accomplishes something. If it accomplishes something, as the Gemara, pigulu. He thought in his mind he's going to put the blood above the red line. Why is that not considered pigul? So Gemara says, Omar Marzutru Zrika the Sharia Basa Bachila Maiside Pigul. Zrika the Sharia Basa Bachila Maiside Pigul. We basically answered the question because it's only a partial, it only works partially. His machshava, his putting above the red line and above it doesn't work to allow the meat to go on the mizbeach. So Mela, it doesn't bring to a situation of pigul. How do you know this halacha? Says the Gemara, you only get kares when the pigul caused it that you can't eat it. The pigul didn't cause it to not be eaten. The fact that he put it above the red line and below the red line, that's what caused it. If that's the case, absolutely not. So why is it puzzle at all? You're right. It shouldn't be puzzle. But now there's something new. This is a new machshava that we didn't know about until now. It's called machshavas hinuach. When the person decides, the kohen decides that he's not going to put the blood, there's a machshava that he's going to put the blood in 3 days from now. That's machshavas pigul. Here's another machshava. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. I'm never going to put it on the mizbeach. That's also a bad machshava that makes it puzzle. It's not pigul, but it makes it puzzle. It's called machshavas hinuach. I'll leave it to Rabbi Yehuda. So what do we have till now? We have that in our Mishnah where it says that if somebody decided that he's going to put the blood above the red line instead of below the red line, it's puzzle, but only that you can't put the meat on the mizbeach, you can't eat it, but it actually does work in a way, this carbon, that the owner that brought the carbon gets kapara. He doesn't have to bring another carbon. We're going to see that Rish Lakish basically says the same exact thing. Rish Lakish Amar loylam pasal mamish. The only difference is how Rish Lakish translates the Mishnah, how he explains the Mishnah. Where Shmuel says the word pasal means, no, half pasal, half not pasal. Pasal for the mizbeach, not pasal for kapara. Rish Lakish learns differently. He says, no, you're right. that when you put the blood, you apply the blood below the red line instead of above the red line, or above the red line instead of below the red line. It's a good zrika. It's bimkoimai, loy bimkoimai, kimikoimai. Not in its right place is like the right place regarding the kapara. Just. So when it says pasul, it means mamish. The entire Mishnah means he's pasul, he doesn't get a kapara, and you can't put the meat on the mizbeach. Completely normal, like you and I would read it. Pasul, it means pasul. Shmuel comes with chiddush. No, it doesn't mamish mean pasul. It only means 50% pasul, but the other 50% is kosher. Says Rishon, I don't like that pshat. Pasul to me means everything. I agree with everything you're saying. All the halachas that you said are correct. Just how do you explain the Mishnah is incorrect. You see, on the chart, they both have a check, a green check. They both hold the same thing. The Mishnah, the reason why the entire thing is possible, because the kohen had a bad thought. Not only did he put the blood in the wrong place, he also had a bad machshava of pigul, whatever it is. Where typically, if he just put it in the wrong place, you're right, he would have a kapara, because he didn't have it was vishtika. In other words, vishtika means his mind was silent. He didn't have anything going on in his mind. He just put it in the wrong place. Put it in the wrong place, the Bible gets a kapara. So over there, it's a similar mission to ours, but over there it's discussing you go back and do a kapara. So it says, he thought about putting the blood instead of down above the red line, lemala instead of above, lemato. Kulu admidi da have a machshav sinuach, oh. So now, since Rish Lakish says the same exact thing as Shmuel, so we're just going to ask the same questions that we asked on Shmuel, all the way. It's v'goymer v'chulu v'chulu v'chulu. V'aliba de Rabbi Yehuda goes like Rabbi Yehuda. Great. And finally, now we're on the opposing team now. Rabbi Yochanan Omar. This is Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan argues. First of all, he says, Leibim koima, if you put the blood in the wrong, below here. Oh, I don't even need this. Yoshi did this, I didn't use it on Friday. Here we go. Chatos, he put the blood of the shlamim above the red line. He put the blood of the chatos below the red line. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, idi v'idi shenasam b'shtika, the Mishnah and everything, all the steers that we had, everything is talking about a case where the kohen did not have any other intent. He put the blood in the wrong place, like we just saw, without something else going on in his mind. If you put the blood in the wrong place, pasul, no good. So, how come we said that the guy could go back and redo the blood? Because there's actually more blood coming out of the neck of the animal. There's dam nefesh. I don't know if you remember. We said it quickly then. We learned there's the blood of the skin that's no good for zrika, and there's dam tamtzis, that's the blood that comes out after the dam nefesh. We're trying to get the dam nefesh, the blood that the neshama comes out with. We're going to see it might have different colorations to it, but over here there's more blood. So go redo it. What's the problem? And our Mishnah talking about there's no other blood. There's nothing you can do about it. Tanan, possible bikares. It says in the Mishnah that if you put the blood in the wrong place, it's possible, but you don't get kares. What's going on according to Rish Lakish? He had the wrong thought. Remember, our Mishnah is talking about he had the wrong. Not only did it put it below the red line, above the red line, he also thought himself a bad machshava that's paisel. So that now it makes sense. Hainu diktani pasul vein bikars. It's not pigul. Ella the Rabbi Yochanan mayim bikars. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, that he did it b'shtika. We said there's no thoughts going on. So why would I even think that he has to get kares if there's no thoughts going on? Kasha, good question. Well, Shmuel, let's just talk about Shmuel for a second. Well, Shmuel, that also says there's no machshava over here. There's shtika. Mayim bikars. What's pshat? There's no kares. Hachikama. Even though some machshava, you should know that if you did have a thought, a bad thought, pause mayim bikars. Rabbi Yochanan, just a question on Rabbi Yochanan. What does Rabbi Yochanan say? You put it in the wrong place, no good. So what happened? There was a shchita, there was a kabbalah in the vessel. And what did he do? He poured the blood, instead of putting it below the red line, he put it above the red line. So we all know what happens if you have blood inside the klisharis. You're about to do zrika, and you trip, you fall, and all the blood falls on the floor. What do? You sponge it up, tinko it, and you put it back in the thing, and then you go weiter. So let's say you put it on a wall, not the mizbeach. You put it on this wall, scrape it off the wall, and go weiter. You put it above the red line instead of below the red line. According to Rabbi Yochanan, 0. So just scrape it off the wall and continue weiter. What's the problem? Rabbi Yochanan, says Gemara, a very convenient answer. Because he holds that you're not allowed to gather it. If it falls on the floor, you're over. He holds like that. If it's supposed to go above and you put it above, in other words, you put it in the right place. But you did it with your left hand, or you had a bad machshava. Let's say he's talking about it with the left hand. Here's the mandama that says you're not allowed to gather it. But if he put it in the wrong place in his beach, Yosi says, even though he holds it's like not in the right place, but nevertheless you're not allowed to gather it. Reb Shimon says you should gather it. And now our Mishnah, we have to say he's talking about that you're not allowed to gather it. That's why you don't have an issue. Everybody agrees that if it's supposed you put the blood in the wrong place, you should not gather it. And certainly, if it was supposed to go above and you put it below, eventually the blood drips down. The top goes to the bottom. So in Mela, there's no reason for you to redo it. Because eventually anyways it's going to end up on the bottom. So if you put it on the bottom, it's kilo, okay. So you're supposed to put it on the top, but it reaches the bottom. So if you put it directly in the bottom, it's such a svara. If you're supposed to put it over here inside the heichal, and by mistake, that's you can get confused. You know, you used to doing zrika on this mizbech all year round. One day a year, you go over here. A couple times, you put it over here. So you made a mistake. Bachot, you're supposed to put the blood on this mizbech. Instead, he went inside. That's really sneaky. He used it as an excuse to go put it in. Okay, so over here, Rabbi Yossi says you got to gather because there's zero zrika. You know what? At the end of the day, you put it on a mizbech. You're right. They look very different. One is made out of stones. One is made out of gold. One is huge. You need a ramp to get up. The other one is only like 4 feet tall or something. Okay, but at the end of the day, you put it on mizbech. We have the pasuk. Here we go. Zois means justice. Taurus ha'oila. He. This one, ha'oila, the oila. What do I learn? Harei elu miyutin. This comes to exclude 3 things. Prat l'nishchato b'layla, v'sheneshbach dama, v'shiyotza dama chutz l'kloim, im also tered. There's a concept. Once you put something on a mizbeach, it doesn't come off. We're going to see. A machlokes. Reb Shimon says everything. Doesn't matter what. But the first man Amar says, Reb Yehuda says, besides 3 things. If it was shechted at night, you take it off. And if the blood spilled, and that's the part that we're looking for, the blood that spilled on the floor, take it off. And if you took it outside of the kloim here, we might as well just look at the chart for a second. Here, if you took it out from here and you went over here, Shalom Yisrael. Or over here. No, I can't. Let's go back to the other one. Here. If you go outside this way, it's all over. If it comes on the Imolsa, tear it. Reb Shimon Omer, let's read this. Oila ein li ela oila kshero. The word oila means the carbon oila. What's oila? It goes up to heaven. You put the whole thing on the mizbeach. You burn everything. Nothing. You don't eat 1 ounce of this animal. Everything goes to Hashem. How do you know the 3 things that we just mentioned? Va'alon, and meat that was left over overnight when you can't eat it anymore. Va'yoytze, went outside of the base. Va'atame, and the person or the meat is tame. That we discussed. That you shechted it with the intent a Yisrael, let's say, did zrika, or he's mekabel the blood. All these are going to be in the video as part of the rep. And blood that goes above, and he put it below. Blood that goes inside the heichal, and he put it outside there. Here's the Shalei L'Shema, the first mission of Zevachim. That if it goes on top of the Mizbeach, it doesn't come off. Now we're not talking anymore about the carbon oila, we're talking about the word oila. Oila means to go up. If it went up on top of the Mizbeach, Riba Torah Achaz L'Kol Oilim. Shemalo, Rabbi Isai, Lo Yerdu. Yochel Shani Marbe Afar Rivev Anirba. What about an animal that an aver was done to it? Bestiality. Vamukza, or somebody did avodah zara, haneva avodah zara mukta, somebody designated his animal for avodah zara. Voesnan, and a sheep that was given to a zayna for services cannot be brought as a carbon. Vamechir, and if somebody sold or traded a dog for a sheep. Vakloim, vatreifa. Akloim is an animal that has two different, the goat and a sheep had a offspring. Vatreifa. V'yoytze doifen. You can't be a carbon. Tamaloimar zois. Why did you say that? Let's say the avodah zara animal cannot be imalu yerdu. Why? What's the logic that this list you take off, this list you don't? Think about it. The list that you don't take off is because they were good karbanas. What happened? You put the blood in the wrong place, everything, but it was a good carbon. But the other list, they had no business coming into the Beis Hamikdash. They were avodah zara before they got to the Beis Hamikdash. But we just learned from all this, from this whole video and everything, blood that was supposed to go above and went below. And there was no argument from Rabbi Yehuda's position. My time, is because we have to say that the Mizbeach absorbed it, so to speak, and made it good. You see from here, at the end of the day, we're going back to the question: could you gather it off the floor or not? And the answer is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, no, you can't. Omar Rebbe Eliezer, we're just going to do this small sugya, and we are at the Mishnah, and that's it for tonight. How we're doing time? Givaldik. Mizbeach hapnimi mekadesh psulim. What happened? Mizbeach hapnimi mekadesh psulim. If you put something, we're talking about the outer mizbeach, but even the inner mizbeach, if you put on something there by mistake, it's mekadesh. You don't take it off. Michael Mashmalon Tanina Hanitonim b'fnim. We learned that if it's supposed to be inside, you put it outside, or outside, you put it inside. It's okay. I think, okay, that's the blood, things that have to do with the carbon. But flour, that you went like this and you wanted to put some flour on the mizbeach, there's never a situation where you put flour on the mizbeach hapnimi. Blood, yes, once in a while, but not flour. I think that doesn't have the ability, it's not in the parsha, it doesn't have the ability to be mekadesh it. It does. Meisvei ketoyer zara. If you put this on the inside mizbeach, you got to take it off immediately. It's the outer mizbeach. This guy right over here, this mizbeach, the regular mizbeach that we use all year round, day and night, that's the one that has the power to take things that are not supposed to be there and say it's okay. But the inner one doesn't have the powers. No. What we're going to say is, we weren't talking about the inner mizbeach. We're talking about the outer mizbeach. If this goes onto the outer mizbeach, the regular mizbeach, the large mizbeach, take it off. Because the outer mizbeach does not have the power to be mekadesh things, only things that belong there. Ketores doesn't belong on that mizbeach. Where does ketores belong, Rabbi say? Right over here on the Mizbeach HaKtoros. It's called Mizbeach Hazav, Mizbeach HaKtoros. Vapnimi, the opposite than what we said in the Havamina. Vapnimi, the inner one, is so powerful. It could actually be mekadesh things that have no business being there at all. My time, what's the difference between the inner one and the outer one? Hi Ritzpa Vaiklei Shars. Let me just show you this video before you jump up and run. This is the Mizbech HaChitzon. What is it made out of? A bunch of cement, a bunch of different things. This is just the Saber 39, Rabbi Sai. Just so you get an idea. But look at this one. This one is made out of gold. That's the whole thing, okay. So Mela, that has a lot more powers. Rabbi Sai, gut Voch, gut Moyed. Thank you so much for coming.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDAF.com.